Hi, this is Molecular with the NB Academy, and today I'll be showing you how you can basically design the transient of a sound without using a transient designer, using techniques such as volume envelopes, filter envelopes, and pitch modulation. So we'll be first showing you in drums and then on bass. So here's how it sounds like in drums, before and after. The difference might not be too obvious on the overall loop, but you'll obviously see the difference when I show you on each individual single drum hit. And here's how it would sound on bass. So this is before, and this is after. A lot of difference. So yeah, before we get started, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, so we can keep making more of these videos. Okay, so let's go over here to the after on the drums. I'm actually going to delete this second group. We no longer need it. That was just for the quick demonstration. And let's start with the kick. So here's how the kick sounds before. Quite thumpy. The transient is there, but we cannot really perceive it. And this is after. Before. After. Let's record the before and after. So let's do the before. And let's see if we can see much difference here. So the top one is before, the second one is after. Funnily enough, we don't really see a lot of difference in the waveforms themselves. But we can definitely hear a massive difference. So what I'm doing here is with Shaper Box, I'm just making sure the transient is still there, and then I'm decreasing everything else. So kind of tricking our ears into thinking that the transient is louder. You could make this extremely obvious, like this, and then boost the overall sound. Like this. So let's see how it looks. It's quite funny that we don't see a lot of visual representation differences. But yeah, it's definitely, certainly there. This is one of those moments where you need to actually use the ears rather than looking at something. But okay. And then obviously we're compensating after with an utility. It's kind of like how a transient designer works, but the opposite way around. So the transient designer, what we'll do is we'll detect where the transient is, which normally is the first initial part of a percussive hit, and then it will boost that. That's what happens normally when we increase the attack or the transient on a transient designer. It will detect the transient and then boost it. That's why normally if you already have something quite loud and you're boosting the transients, you're probably going to need a limiter or a clipper after to compensate for the volume gains and make sure you're not hitting red lines and distorting. Okay, so let's move on to the hats and let's see the before and after. Okay, pretty much the same thing is going on. I'm emphasizing the transient and bringing down everything else. And then I'm boosting it with an utility. We could even make this a lot more prominent by leaving the tail still there. And then boosting a lot more with the utility to compensate. Now it even seems like it doesn't have a transient when you take this off. There we go. Nice transient that cuts through. A bit flappy. Nice one. And then we have these shakers. I'm going to play the before. The offbeat kind of feels like it has a nice transient to it, but the beat kind of feels like it's dragging. So with Shaper Box, we can kind of even it out. We start by having a filter and then a volume automation. Let's listen to just the filter one. It accentuates the movement. I'm using a low pass filter. We could do all sorts of different shapes here. To accentuate that transient movement. And then the volume is even accentuating more that transient. This was just for an example, really, for you to see how you can change a shaker and its properties. This is not something that I normally would do to a shaker. I normally like these types of properties in shakers. It's the natural aspect of the shaker. But if you want to make it super percussive with some volume and filter modulation, you can do it. And then you would need to boost the level a little bit because it feels like we're losing a little bit of general intensity and loudness. So that's the drums. Nothing really is being done to the snare. The snare is just a placeholder. So that's a big difference to the sound. Let's listen to the before and to the after. Kick, big difference. Hat, and the shaker. Lovely. Very nice and tight drums. Now, as for the bass, this is a very, very common technique. So let's listen to it, and then I'm going to add the percussive element. So I'm going to mute this. The bass is there, but doesn't quite cut through the mix. Needs some of this. There we go. And you could even make it a little bit more obvious, but let's go through what's going on here. So this is the bass sound. I'm trying to make it stabby and also have like a stabby envelope on the modulation and on the cutoff. But that still doesn't make it. I could try and go for something like this. And increase the modulation. It kind of helps, but I kind of lost the humph of the sound. So what I really need is something like this. So this is pitch modulation. There's also a little bit of the cutoff and noise, but this is mostly pitch. So let's just see how it sounds when I'm doing on the pitch. It's already a big difference. This is just the pitch of oscillator A. And then the syncing of oscillator B, which is where most of the difference comes from. And then we have noise level. Kind of simulating a transient. And there's loads of different attacks that you can use from here. I prefer the noise one, so let's go back to it. And then I'm also doing it a little bit on the cutoff. So the filter opens even more, so there's more of that noise. So yeah, that's basically how you would do it in the synth. And this kind of works for any sound, really. You could do this to any sound, any bass sound, any synth sound. If you want that initial punch, you get some of that pitch envelope. And you know, this is not pitch, but syncing kind of is pitch because it syncs the frequency of the oscillator. So if we increase the syncing, you increase the frequency, and frequency translates to pitch. So higher frequency means higher pitch. So it's basically the same thing. And this is how you do it. This is how you turn something flappy and with no transient into something like this. Okay, so this was Molecular with the NB Academy. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe so we can keep making more of these videos. And I'll see you on the next one.